Well, we continue our conversation this morning looking at the state of South Africa's economy. Most importantly, what role can we as South Africans play in ensuring that the economy really does increase in terms of percentage as well as output? So joining me to continue that conversation, we do have in studio Thabi Leoka, who is also George Sebulela, who is the General Secretary of the Black Business Council. Of course, as always, you can join in on our conversation. Remember to give us a call or leave your comments on our Facebook as well as our Twitter pages. So just before the break, we're speaking about issues around the content, about the need for us to identify those markets. Mentioning a very interesting point there, Thabi, speaking about how so long as the African states still rely on former colonizers for revenue, for infrastructure development, they're going to have a problem. George, bringing you into that conversation as well. Business. You guys are the Black Business Council. Black Business Council speaks about radical economic transformation in our lifetime. How are we helping South Africans radicalize and transform and also be able to contribute to the economy?
Look, firstly, we participate in major activities or forums that is geared to transform, to look at various options on how we can advance the economy of the country. One of those, as you know, the president has set up what we call the Presidential Advisory Group, in which case we look at various sectors to say what South Africa can do and what parties can, what role they can play in making sure that we expand the economy. The other initiative that is as popularly known is the CEO's Forum, which is chaired by the Minister Pravin Gordhan. We have already spent a lot of discussion. In fact, if you noted that business has already set up 1.5 billion rand SME fund to fund the small, the SME businesses. As you know, the capital is always, the most challenging situation. And South Africa, as you know, has never been geared to set up venture capital, funding. So,
George, I'm going to put a hold on this simply because of the time. Let's have a people conversation this morning, and I understand it from a policy perspective. I understand in the political aspect of it. But the fact of the matter is, so long as we as South Africans don't contribute towards this economy, we're going to be sitting at as negative growth, right? Fact. So long as we have a policy conversation, we're not going to get anywhere. True. So I'm a South African. I'm watching this show. I want to know how I can contribute to this economy, what role that I can do. Should I start a business? Which sectors of industry are doing well at this stage that I can take advantage of? Have a conversation with me as a person that is watching the show that wants to contribute, and instead of the policy frameworks, which I can understand, but I can imagine that where we are sitting right now, we need to be more practical.
Look, let me give you one perspective. I mean, there are very four sample of industries that people can look at. One of them is agriculture. If you know, there's a lot of opportunities. Asian market, consume a lot of products from various countries, like you mentioned, in the Latin America and the Argentina and so on. And I think South Africa, if it can gear itself to that level of setting high-tech, agricultural solutions that could be exported outside South Africa, I think there's a big opportunity there. Secondly, if you look at in terms of mining, as you know, worldwide, South Africa today sits on the second, the third largest platinum producer in the world. There's a lack of beneficiation that sits in there. And we have already engaged and discussed with government to say, instead of taking all these minerals out and they come back into the country, there's a huge opportunity of to set up that beneficiation gap so that we take the entire value chain of this minerals resources for the country. So these are simple practical examples. Services industry, by the way, we haven't exported much. Only 2% of the services solutions are only exported into the sub-Saharan.
We're going to hold on to that because so that we need to expand further on it. I also want to take your calls this morning. I believe that we do have callers on the line. Let's start off with Johannes. I think, Johannes, you're calling in from Secunda. Good morning to you, Johannes.
How are you?
Very well, thanks, and you. Go ahead. What's your comment?
Yes, actually, in South Africa, you can call because it's kind of donation too much from outside. We don't teach our people to buy shares with big companies. If we can teach our South African people who are British companies, these American people, Chinese, but because all the donation from outside, our president, they just go outside asking for donation. No longer necessary for donation. Then we have
No, Johannes, definitely your comment has been heard. Thank you very much for that one. Let's move on to Seabonga. Seabonga calling in from George this morning. Good morning to you, Seabonga.
Hello, sis, how are you?
Very well, thanks, and you. Go ahead. Seabonga, your television screen is on, so you're going to struggle to hear me.
How are you?
I'm good. Your television screen is on. So what I'm going to ask you to do, Seabonga, is just that switch off your TV, and then we'll come back into it. And then in the meantime, you're also going to be taking in some of your comments that have been coming in from Facebook. We've been fielding some of those comments. I'm going to invite Penny to come and join us this morning, just to give us some of those comments that have been coming in from Facebook. Hello, Penny.
Hello, Mangope, Thabi and George. Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Okay, so the people on Facebook, we asked them, in your view, how can we as South Africans contribute towards the growth of our economy? And interesting comments coming through here. Olebohang Makas Khoroba saying, entrepreneurship is a solution. Our schools shouldn't just teach how to become a nation's laborer, but business owners. How possible is that?
Okay. Look, we have always said that government has to create policies that allows entrepreneurship to shine. And I think that comment is correct, that the only way we can also expand, we can't only rely on government to create jobs. It's not sustainable. As you notice that the problem and the pressure of the budget of this country is because on an annual basis, the salaries keep on increasing. And you can't you can't increase only the costs, but you don't look at the income. And that income comes from entrepreneurs that grows businesses, employ people, create activity of the economy. And I think it's correct that entrepreneurship is the driver of the economy.
Okay, so on that note, Ipeling here, I don't know if he's doing a sales pitch, but let's listen in. Intensified Innovations, that's his company, has come up with solutions immensely to grow the economy. Okay, he talks about a campaign that works with young people, contain jobs for youth from all provinces. And then he says, we've been trying to get Treasury on board, but it seems our messages and calls are not forwarded to the people. In regards to this, the shift of mindset of the policies have been created by government, and I have a great concept that thing can work, but there's constantly this thing of hey government, can you give me some money to make this happen? Is that what needs to happen there, Thabi?
So I think also the fact that he said Treasury also worries me, because Treasury people don't understand what government departments do, and I think that's one of the reasons why they can't then tap into government sectors that provide that kind of funding. I also think that from government perspective, there needs to be a database of funding and also training that needs to, so that people who want to get into business can access that database. There's a lot of funding from both domestic and international funders, but it's all over the place, and it would be easier for if somebody wants to start up a business to go to a place where they can database which has this information. I also think that besides policy, which is important because it has to be enabling, we need also training, and the fact that our vocational training basically doesn't exist is a problem. So you can't be an entrepreneur because you don't know how to. You don't know how to do the basic things of balancing, looking at a balance sheet, or how to grow 20 Rand into 100 Rand at the end of the month. And it leads to something that has become quite sensitive issue, which is xenophobia. And the reason why other people who come to the country and become very entrepreneurial.
So we've also become reliant and too dependable. And then when others are self-reliant,
exactly. But we also haven't, because of apartheid. Apartheid as a policy ensured that we do not have any business skills, or we don't acquire any business skills. I'm going to
hold you there, Penny. I'm going to thank you so much for joining us for that conversation. I'm going to ask you to continue, but on the point that you're making to the both of you, right? This whole thing about the informal sector and the informal sector of business, perhaps it's a shift in mindset that is needed. You speak about how people need to learn about balance sheets, etc. Let's bring it back to basics. A woman that is selling tomatoes in the corner shop or on the street was able to take her children to school with that very same money of tomatoes, was able to feed her family. And we still call it till today the informal sector. But that woman is contributing more into the economy than I believe somebody that is sitting at home doing absolutely nothing, right? So that person does not need to balance books. That person needs to know how to turn 5 rand into 15 rand.
Exactly.
How then do we move
but that is part of balance. But how do you, because if you do, then you need to know how to save. You need to know how much you're spending. You need to know where to buy products which are cheaper. So it's all part of an education that is not, you're not born, it's not just, you know, you get it through osmosis. Some people do, but you do need some training to say, this is how you save. This is which bank provides the best interest rates. Those little things do make a difference at the end of, you know, when you're looking at a business, and especially the informal sector. In South Africa, the informal sector accounts for about 30%. In other countries, other emerging markets like your South American ones in Asia, it's over 50%. And we need to grow the informal sector to the point where you know, where our unemployment rate actually reduces
as a result of that. George,
it.
I'm going to bring you into that one as a solution find.
Look, I mean, she's correct. She said it. You just need the basics of understanding how much you can be able to increase your profit. You know, just the simple basics to know that this material, as much as its quality, how much, where can I buy it cheaper, which location of my business I can put it in, you know, just simple basics in order to make sure that you grow. You can't remain to become an informal sector forever.
Well, as we're both mentioning here, that perhaps it's looking at how our mindsets need to change, and obviously looking at that informal sector becoming more of a contributor into the GDP. We have to leave our conversation there, unfortunately. Obviously, it's one that we'll continue having this. Thank you so much to Thabi, Leoka, as well as George Sebulela for joining us this morning for that conversation.